The U.S. has lost the corn crown. We've been the world's top exporter of corn for just about every single year in history. Now, that's changing.
It's the fact input prices are so high, and relief specifically within the price of inputs does not look to be in sight. In fact, input prices could be even higher this fall.
In a silent yet seismic shift, China abruptly halted purchases of U.S. soybeans and corn just before the next wave of tariffs hit. The USDA pulled the plug on key food buying programs that supported Humboldt schools, tribal communities, senior centers, and food banks, while also backing struggling ranchers and farmers. Corn prices crashed to just $3.50 per bushel, triggering a full-scale crisis across America's Corn Belt. Over 2 million tons of corn were rejected and sent back to New Orleans by foreign importers, instantly transforming million-dollar contracts into worthless scraps of paper. From Iowa to Indiana, combines sit rusting in fields because harvesting now means greater financial loss. Across the Midwest, cracked kernels rot in the rain, creating impromptu grain dumps as farmers grapple with broken futures and ballooning debt. While American growers drown in surplus and despair, Canada has moved swiftly and quietly, finalizing multi-billion-dollar grain supply deals with Japan, South Korea, and even key European markets. A silent coup has unfolded, not on battlefields, but across dinner plates worldwide. So, what exactly triggered this collapse of the U.S. corn sector in early 2025? The answer begins with tariffs that are devouring U.S. corn while it's still sitting in barges. When the White House imposed fees up to $1.5 million per voyage on China-built cargo ships, shipping costs through the Gulf of Mexico soared by 25%, inflating U.S. export costs by nearly $930 million a year. Meanwhile, container rates on trans-Pacific routes exploded. Within just the first 2 months of the year, ex-Asia freight costs spiked to nearly $5,000 per FEU, twice the average since the pandemic's peak. But the next blow came from within U.S. borders. On March 14, 2025, the Federal Grain Inspection Service issued Directive 9180.40, increasing the multi-residue pesticide export testing fee from $57 to $81 per sample, a 40% hike within a single season. Without this new, green certificate, U.S. grain shipments risk being turned back mid-transit. Costs rose steeply, yet the grain refused to move. The February 6 grain transport report revealed barge traffic on the Mississippi had dropped 16% below the 5-year average. In New Orleans, ports became choked with vessels waiting for paperwork and empty containers. Over 180 ships sat idle, as corn piled up back home, spoiling by the day. On top of mounting logistics chaos, global buyers pivoted sharply toward stricter import standards. In February 2025, Mexico enacted a national ban on genetically modified, GMO, corn and prioritized imports with low-carbon certifications. This policy change was quickly mirrored by feed mills across Asia and Europe. With 92% of U.S. corn classified as GMO, the country was promptly removed from preferred supplier lists. Canada, in contrast, capitalized on its Prairie Trace blockchain system, which tracks each shipment and verifies carbon compliance. That system helped Canadian exporters clinch premium deals with Japan, South Korea, and EU member states. The market reaction was instant. While U.S. spot corn prices slumped to $3.45 per bushel, the lowest since 2016, Canadian offers from Manitoba held strong at $4.20, buoyed by their environmental edge. Global buyers didn't hesitate. U.S. grain was more expensive, slower to certify, and failed to meet non-GMO standards. The maple leaf became the preferred choice, not just for price, but for compliance, reliability, and transparency. New Orleans has become the map's new fault line. On one side, abandoned contracts and surplus grain turning black in the rain. On the other, Canadian ships sailing at top price for corn with a green seal. As transportation and inspection costs keep rising, the debate is no longer about when U.S. corn will bounce back, but whether it can even survive on the global stage. Consider Shelby County, Iowa, awash in corn, yet unable to sell. According to Reuters, unsold corn stocks held by U.S. farmers have surged to a 6-year high. The USDA forecasts that over 2.5 billion bushels, nearly 68 million tons, will remain stuck in storage silos through September, exposed to the elements. In Cedar Rapids, the current cash bid for September delivery is a mere $3.74 per bushel, while the average cost of growing that corn in Iowa this year exceeds $165.75 per acre. The math doesn't work, and neither do the combines. Many farmers are listing their John Deere 660s on Craigslist or picking up side gigs. Some even drive Uber at night to stay afloat. Reuters notes that in some counties, families are withholding as much as 90% of their harvest from the market because selling would only deepen their financial hole. And it's not just the balance sheet that's taking the hit. Indiana State Economic Council reported a 6.1% decline in the Corn Belt's local economy during Q1 2025, one of the sharpest in the nation. With revenue drying up, food assistance requests have surged. The Food Bank of Indiana has seen a 50% increase in households seeking help compared to the previous year. Meanwhile, looming SNAP budget cuts could eliminate over 130 million meals for the state's poorest residents. In Illinois, the crisis is equally grim. For the third straight year, water levels on the Illinois-Mississippi waterway have hit record lows. Barges must now carry lighter loads and take shorter trips, adding $20 per ton in shipping costs and causing delays of up to 15 days. The jam has backed up grain all the way to farm gates. Interest rates for loans remain elevated, and as farmers struggle to refinance, land investment funds are quietly scooping up acres at discounted prices. Even rural schools aren't immune. Some districts in Illinois have shifted to 3-day-a-week in-person instruction just to cut down on electricity bills. And across Nebraska and Minnesota, often called America's underground corn vault, water restrictions are taking a heavy toll. The Little Blue Natural Resources District has limited irrigation to just 13 inches per acre annually, forcing co-ops to temporarily halt corn buying because storage bins are at capacity. What began as a tariff conflict has snowballed into a structural crisis. High shipping fees, new compliance hurdles, and tightening global standards have slammed shut the doors of the world's grain markets to American corn. As Canada reaps the rewards of early policy alignment and green certification, U.S. farmers are left with storage bins full, fields unharvested, and no place to send their crop. The grain wars of 2025 aren't being fought with machinery, but with regulation, trade routes, and blockchain tracking. And right now, it's clear who's winning. Across towns lining Highway 6, grain trucks have disappeared like clockwork, leaving behind empty fuel stations and diners in places like Hastings shutting down their grills before sundown due to vanishing foot traffic. The businesses still exist, but the money flow has flatlined. One of the biggest contributors to this collapse? Ethanol. A recent report by the U.S. Energy Information Administration, EIA, reveals that Midwest ethanol production has plunged to just 87.8% of capacity. 25 plants have closed across the region, cutting off over 1.26 billion gallons of production. In Columbus, Nebraska, Valero's ethanol facility slashed 60% of its night shifts, laying off 120 workers, an alarming sign for local economies already pushed to the edge. This sharp contraction in demand for corn has hit at the worst time. Silos in Iowa are jammed to the rafters. Illinois barge terminals are locked up. Nebraska fuel pumps are running dry. Every part of the system, from harvest to transport to energy, is now broken. Corn, once the beating heart of Midwest agriculture, is no longer just devalued, it's draining the life out of rural America. Meanwhile, Canada, quiet and calculated, has stepped up with precision. It's not just replacing U.S. corn, it's creating an entirely new luxury corn segment. By leveraging blockchain traceability and advanced sustainability certifications, Canada is building unmatched trust among importers. A 2025 report by Farmit confirms that North American grain buyers now treat blockchain as the new norm for traceability, and Canada is leading the pack thanks to its centralized co-op structure in Ontario and Saskatchewan. But Canada doesn't stop at digital tracking. Ottawa enforces strict 3-no policies, no genetically modified organisms (GMO), no glyphosate, and no carbon output exceeding the EU's RED II threshold. This aggressive sustainability push allows Canadian corn to pass EU customs clearance 20 days faster than US shipments, according to data from the Canadian Agri-Food Trade Alliance. The benefits are real. The Grain Farmers of Ontario's June 2025 Market Trends report shows old crop basis premiums running between $1.30 to $1.87 per bushel over CBOT futures, with new crops also fetching up to 30% higher prices. That premium isn't just about corn, it's about confidence. When Asian feed mills or European importers buy Canadian grain, they're buying a clean brand and a guarantee of compliance. March 2025 brought Canada's biggest boost yet when the organic equivalency arrangement with South Korea kicked in, allowing a major Ontario co-op to lock down a 5-year deal with a Korean feed giant in just 3 weeks. Farmers there enjoy robust support, export credit insurance, partial reimbursements on cold chain logistics, and carbon certification funding are just a few tools available. All this has led to a huge shift in grain logistics. Reuters reports that U.S. Gulf ports saw grain ship bookings drop 14% year-on-year in spring 2025. Meanwhile, Vancouver is booming as Canadian rail lines efficiently pull grain from the U.S. Midwest for re-export at competitive backhaul rates. It's not just a few cargoes moving, it's a redirection of North America's grain compass toward the maple leaf. For every container sealed with blockchain data and backed by clean farming, Canada pockets a bigger share of the global grain wallet. And it's not just about corn. As U.S. shipments get rejected or rerouted due to residue issues or lack of traceability, Canadian contracts keep piling up, with Asian and European buyers prioritizing consistent, green-labeled imports. As this plays out, America's agricultural backbone is showing deep cracks. Corn's downfall is triggering chain reactions. Soybeans, with over 90% GMO acreage, are now under threat. The European Union has already removed U.S. soy from its low-carbon whitelist. As feed prices rise, dairy farmers are staring at their worst bankruptcy rate since 1980. And beef? It's about to get squeezed harder. Cattle raised on carbon-heavy feed will attract steeper tariffs than their Canadian and Australian counterparts. All eyes are now on Washington. The White House stands at a crossroads. One path demands pulling back from protectionist tariffs, lowering import fees on green farming equipment, introducing blockchain mandates, and syncing U.S. carbon standards with international norms. It's politically risky, but it opens the door to restoring trust in American exports and rejoining the elite circle of global agri-leaders. The other path is more familiar, clinging to outdated subsidies, rigid inspections, and high tariffs. But that's the same road that crushed the Rust Belt decades ago. If Washington doesn't act fast, Canada won't just snatch market share, it'll own the premium, sustainable brand on every global dinner table. So here's the big question. Will Washington update its playbook before the rural economy collapses further? Or will the Corn Belt fade into economic obscurity while Canada, Australia, and others set the new global standard? Personally, I believe the US still has the innovation, scale, and infrastructure to reclaim its leadership. But it requires bold moves, fast decisions, and a willingness to adapt. What do you think? Is it already too late for the American corn industry? Or can smart policies still turn the tide? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you stay up to date with the biggest political and economic shifts shaping our world.